How are you? Thank you for keeping me company. And I hope that these devotions have been speaking to you as we've been journeying through different portions of the Bible. We started with talking about the moments when we feel overwhelmed. We spoke about the moments when we feel lonely. And then we spoke about the moments when we feel like the odds are stuck up against us. Today, I wanted us to talk about the moments when we don't know how. And in your mind, you're like, I feel like I don't know how I'm going to do this. I can't figure this thing out. And that's a place we find ourselves in a lot of times, where we don't know how we're going to make our way through things. And in the Bible, I want us to catch up with the story of the women, Mary Magdalene, and Salome, right? And in Mark chapter 16, verse 1, if you read all the way through to verse 6, they're making their way to the tomb. Jesus has been buried, and the tomb has been sealed with this huge stone. But on that Sunday morning, they woke up and they're like, hey, let's go and embalm the body of Christ. And so they had these spices and the things they used to use to do that. And they're heading to the cross, and they're just going. But in Mark chapter 16, verse 6, they ask a very interesting question, and they ask themselves, but who is going to roll away that stone for us? You know, how will we go and roll that stone away? We want to embalm the body. Okay, we have everything that we need for that process, but we don't know how we're going to roll that stone away. And I feel like life can be like that a lot, where we've gathered everything that we need, but there's this one thing that we just can't figure out how we're going to do it. Yeah. And as human beings, we are limited. Sometimes we have good ideas, we have good intentions, we've prepared well, but we don't know how. And we don't even know how things are going to work. We don't know how things are going to turn out. The thing that I like about the women, though, and I call them the women of faith, and this is the reason why I'm calling them the women of faith. If you're old enough, you remember there's that gospel group that is called the Women of Faith, and they sang really nice songs. I can't sing any one of them today. But these women of faith, the thing I like about them is that even as they are asking themselves how, they're still making their way to the grave. They're still making their way to the tomb. And I like that because I think in these pursuits of life, whether it's in the pursuit of your purpose, in your journey, in the calling that God has given you, whatever it is that we're doing, I find like there are two sorts of people. That there are people who, even when they don't know how, they're still going to keep going. And there are people who, when we don't know how, we get paralyzed and we stop. And I like these women because they're the first type. Not knowing how they are going to move the stone did not stop them from heading to the grave, to the tomb of Jesus, to do what they felt like they meant to do. And they proceeded. And they went, even though they did not know how they were going to do it. That is a very important thing to carry. I think it's actually an aspect of faith to keep moving forward when you don't know how things are going to work out. That is faith. And a lot of us get paralyzed because we stop in seasons because we're trying to figure things out. And then this analysis can paralyze us, and it just stops us from moving in the things that God has called us to do. These women went, even though they didn't know how. Granted that by the time they got to the grave, they found the stone had already been rolled away. And I feel like what that teaches me is that some of the things I'm worried about, or most of the things I'm worried about in my life today, maybe I'm going to arrive at them and figure that actually before I got there, God had already made a way. And what he needed me to do is just to keep progressing in faith and in trust. That when I get there, I'll find that God got there before me. I think we need to rest on the promise of God that says, I will go before you. Exodus 33:14. When God says, I will go before you and I will give you peace. I will go before you and I will give you rest. I will go before you. Somewhere in Isaiah it says, I will go before you and I will clear the way before you. And I feel like we need to rest in that promise that even when we don't know how things are going to happen, we can rest in knowing that God will go before us. Here at Collective, one of the stories that we learned this year is from the book of Luke chapter 17, and it's the story of the 10 lepers. I find that story so interesting because they call out to Jesus and they're like, Manze, please have mercy on us and heal us. And then Jesus tells them, go and show yourselves to the priests. Until you read Luke chapter 17 verse 14, when now we come back and we see that the Bible actually says, and as they went, they got well. Do you realize the importance of those words? It is not, they didn't get healed in the presence of Jesus. Even though he had the power to heal them right there and then, Jesus told them, go and show yourselves to the priests. Because back in the day, priests are the ones who used to now declare that you are healed from leprosy. Even though Jesus had the power to heal them in his presence, it is as they left his presence and went to the priests, as they went, they got well. I think there are certain things in our lives that are going to fall in place as we go. And maybe I'm in the place where I am in the presence of God. I'm praying before God. I'm trusting God. But God is like, move. Just leave and start walking. And as you go, I will make things well. I will heal you. I will show you the way. I will direct you. I will provide as you go. So let me ask you, is there a place in your life where you're stuck at today because you're trying to figure out how? Is there a place where you've been paralyzed from making progress because you're trying to figure out how? And maybe sometimes we need to speak to ourselves and say that trying to figure out how is not as important as knowing who has given the command for you to go. If Jesus has said go, if he has said go and show yourself to the priest, then you need to go. You must get up and go because he has said, and his command is final. When God says go, maybe I need to look at it and be like, let me not be paralyzed by trying to figure out everything, because the one who has said go is so powerful. And I need to fill my mind not with ideas of trying to figure out how, but in a way of trusting the who has spoken the word. And I can rise up and go because, hey, sometimes how is not as important as who. How things will turn out is not as important as who will make these things happen. And in the end, it is God who makes things happen, and he will carry it through to the end. So trust him, move in obedience, trust and obey. For there is no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. God bless you. Bye.